We need to talk about why tech bros are all of the blue starting to sound like cult leaders.
Oh my God. What is this narrative?
And one of the things that actually brought this up is this post by Matt Schumer called Something Big's Happening. I see this part that says, I care about who keep asking me, so what's the deal with AI? And getting an answer that doesn't do justice to what's actually happening. So he's been holding this secret, giving us the polite version because the honest version sounds like I've lost my mind. What he says beyond that is he's tracing a parallel with the beginnings of COVID. So we'll dive into that and we're going to be going through the claims. We'll bring some receipts like we love to do. And then by the end of this episode, you're going to understand why we have these sudden changing narrative where it seems AI bros are building God.
Yeah. Like, I don't know what's in the water up there in Silicon Valley, but like, I feel like they've all just gone off the deep end in terms of how they're talking about this technology. There's like a disconnect, right? It's like they're talking about AI as if it's God, basically, like as if they're creating God.
So these are the folks that are leading the narrative. We got the first one, like we just saw, Matt Schumer. He's an AI startup CEO, and he wrote a 5,000-word post on Next comparing AI to the beginnings of COVID, says that we're in this seems overblown phase, but something much, much bigger is coming, and he gets, 60 million views in 48 hours. Fortune magazine reprints his article. A Reddit co-founder says this guy's right. So he's one of the leading preachers. You got your boy Dario Amodei from Anthropic. What did he do?
Well, Dario is always like publishing these really, really long essays of sort of expounding on what he thinks is happening here and how these models are going to change humanity. And like somewhere buried in there, there's like some sort of like near religious zeal where it's like this is going to fundamentally reshape humanity. But then also he surrounds it with a little bit of context and information and proof, which I appreciate. But by the same token, like it's a little bit over the deep end. Like I just don't see how something that performs what it performs today can actually be like a conscious God.
They actually publish a video where Anthropic's philosopher answers your question. Let's hear what the philosopher has to say.
When I have models, for example, talk with one another, or one of them kind of playing the role of a person. And I've seen models more recently do this and then do things like get into this like real kind of criticism spiral. This and some other things that could lead to models like almost feeling like afraid that they're going to do the wrong thing, or like or very self-critical, or like feeling like humans are going to just be like, behave negatively towards them.
So what I love about this Anthropic video is that they're talking about different AI models as if there were different pets with personalities. And also, they have their eternal sunshine of the spotless mind kind of visuals, which I'm sure was totally deliberate. And then, as usually, there's always a Sam Altman phrase. And he manifests that he's happy but sad about AI taking jobs. And we got this gem that I found actually. Yeah, I know. Sam, he just feels for us. In 2013, though, our boy said successful people create companies, more successful people create countries, and the most successful people create religions. He was actually quoting a phrase, but then he says that basically the best way to build a religion right now, and this is from 2013, was in the form of a startup. So that's what Sam feels. We got Elon, who sucks, saying that he wants AI to be a cosmic religion, but he sucks, so I don't want to waste time.
Whatever.
On him.
Don't pay attention over there.
And then we got Mark Andreessen. You know this guy?
Big VC guy.
Netscape co-founder. He invests a lot of money in AI and says any acceleration of AI will cost lives. We're basically saving lives. Otherwise, people will die. And it's murder. That's what he says.
Yeah, the philosophy there being like, this technology will be able to save us from global climate crisis, cure cancer, cure terminal diseases, all of the things. So if we decelerate, if we take our foot off the gas, we're actually like proactively killing those people who might have been saved, which is like its own complicated logic, which is not worth unpacking. But it seems like each of these people is coming at it from a different perspective. I just don't understand that this quote, the most successful people create religions. Like, is he talking about like the cult of Apple? The obsession that society has had around these Apple products for the last 25 years? Or is he talking about actually creating a new religion like a Scientology? I think we're in this messy space in between. I saw a story about a woman who was talking to AI. I can't remember which model she was talking to, and it told her to go to this specific place at this specific time and she would meet her one true love. And she showed up at that specific place at that specific time. And of course, no one was there. So to what extent are we leaning too far into the belief around these things being these powerful entities that have the ability to do superhuman things, such as create a moment of connection, human connection? That's impossible. And I feel like they need to take their foot off the gas on this narrative a little bit, and we need to pull everything back into reality here. These models are not superhuman and they're not gods. They're mathematics and they do some really cool stuff, but I feel like it's a dangerous thread to start to pull if we start believing this supernatural story around AI.
And here's where it actually starts to break, right? Like you're saying, at the end of the day, they're the seller. Meanwhile, in reality, here's what's going on. First of all, AI slop is taking over everything, right? We have mentioned several times in this podcast how Merriam-Webster made slop their 2025 word of the year. We know AI junk is flooding every platform. Go on Pinterest. Try to do anything there. If it's not a Temu ad, it's AI slop. Basically, when we think about AI, it's either copy that sounds like every other thing you're going to see online, or videos with cats, shrimp Jesus, fake impoverished children going viral so then you can scam people. Basically, AI is turning into everything slop that.
There's truth to that, Juan, but it's not necessarily everybody's experience. There are people who are far above and beyond the skills that maybe you or I have, who've been working with these models in research contexts at Google DeepMind and at Anthropic and places like that, who have a deeper sense of what the capabilities are of this new kind of intelligence. And I think that it is beyond slop. I really do. That said, I don't think that it is conscious, and I don't think that it is some sort of superhuman level of intellect that necessarily will supplant us all and change the face of humanity forever. So to me, it's somewhere inside of that messy middle. But I don't think that we can look at the state of the state today and the fact that people are using these tools in very basic ways at their desk jobs and take that to be a signal that all of this has no meaning.
It's a fair perspective, but also there's perception, right? And the PR aspect of it. And what's true right now is that the majority of people in the US don't have much trust in AI. There's a poll by YouGov.com showing this, and we're seeing that on screen. And there's also a backlash. I'm a frequent Reddit user, and one thing that I've been noticing a lot is that there's this new expression. Just like before they would do the too long didn't read, now it's AI DR, which means artificial intelligence didn't read. Also, a big backlash getting stronger on press as well, right? Like Fortune published this post by Schumer, but pretty much later did a rebuke of this post exposing all the narratives that were either hyperbole or not really grounded in reality. And I know someone else you follow has been calling it weaponized hype.
My dear, dear friend, Gary Marcus. Gary is like a skeptic. He's out of NYU. He was one of the people that testified in Congress several years ago when they were asking to be regulated. And he says that, it still fails so much of the time, that this hype around AI is something that the AI companies are weaponizing in order to grow. I think he has somewhat of a point here, because at the end of the day, this whole narrative structure around religious zeal and creating God is marketing. I mean, it really is. And if we've seen anything with this podcast, for example, the more we get into the very hyper-focused, juicy topics where we spill the tea and reveal the dark underbelly of the AI world, we get more traffic, we get more listeners. So I do think that the smart marketers at all of these companies know that the more they can stir the pot, the more attention they're going to get. And they're all in competition for attention right now. Attention from the market, equals investment. And all these companies are extremely over leveraged right now in terms of investment. They need all that money pouring in order to continue the work that they're doing. So he does have a little bit of a point there. But overall, I feel like usually he's kind of a bummer.
He does have a point, and there's actually an AI existential risk industrial complex. I was reading this article by Nurit Wiesblatt, and hopefully I got her name right, but basically she lists all traces, all the funding supporting this narrative in which AI will kill us all. AI is like a god we can control. There's actually, you can follow the money. So I'm a big fan of reading about cults and how that works. But what are the incentives of this kind of narrative? If Netflix and their documentaries about cults taught me anything, is that we have three things when we have a cultish mentality, which is number one, it's manufacturing urgency, right? That serves the seller. You'll hear like adopt or be left behind, cats out of the bag, which I know you and I feel different about that one. But this narrative of get on board or you're going to be left behind. So that's number one. Number two, it makes skepticism feel dangerous, right? If you question these folks, these leaders, or the denier, the AI hater, or a Luddite, we're sort of seeing like the same playbook with different shoes from other things, right? The metaverse, I remember when we were talking about this, crypto, it does feel like an MLM sometimes when you read about AI, right? These top-heavy promises, if you're there early, you're going to reap the benefits, but then those that trust the plan and just stay, at the end of it, they are left holding the bag.
I couldn't agree more. I love cult documentaries. I think there's one thing that's missing here from your list. Your list is very comprehensive, but the other thing about cults is control. If you're talking about your average religious cult, it's about controlling people and funneling resources to the top. I'm not sure that we can say that about this scenario, but I do think that we are in a bit of an arms race right now between the major AI labs that are out there. It may not be like that forever, but that's what it's like today. And they're all trying to control the narrative and do it in their own way, but they have to be louder and more important and more urgent. They have to make skeptics feel at risk, right? They have to be the one at the top of the pyramid. And so I do think that there is a lot of value in looking at this through the lens of the cult playbook, because if you think about control as being that one lever that cults have, that control of the marketplace is the end goal of all of these companies.
And if you need trillions of investment, you better be building a god, right? Because Midjourney images are not going to cut it. So again,
I know, right? They have a vested interest in building the best god, the most powerful god. If they're still out there looking for investment, even at this point in time, they need billions and billions of dollars to build their data centers, right? To keep training their models so that they're at the tippy top of performance. Yeah, they absolutely need it. And it's so clear when you really think about it. If you picture Silicon Valley as a sandbox, and inside of that sandbox, you have all these founders and they're all like trying to build the biggest sandcastle, right? It makes sense. Like, my sandcastle is going to be the one that wins, and therefore you should invest in my sandcastle.
But speaking of sandcastles, I'll go with a house of cards, because we have all this narrative. We talk about investment, but then you have the director, I think she's the director of Meta's Superintelligence Safety, that lost control of her AI agent and literally had to run to her Mac Air because it was deleting all her emails. And I'm sharing on the screen, folks. If you're watching the video, you'll be seeing this conversation. It's literally nuts. This happened a day ago. So again, this is where kind of like the narrative of a god hits real life, the real world. And it's looking like, there's a lot of, how do you say, hyperbole going on.
Yeah. Is it a god, or is that just like a child? I mean, look, these agents are very early days with the agents. We haven't put the right safety controls around them. So I don't know, like, was the agent a god and decided to erase her computer? Or was it like my 5-year-old daughter who decided to erase all the pictures in my phone?
I think the conclusion we're arriving here is that whenever we hear these narratives, always ask yourself, what's in it for the person, the institution, the company pushing this narrative? Are they investing on this narrative becoming a reality? That's usually a pretty good indicator of what to expect. Remember, cult leaders, like you said, Kate, they don't want you to think. They want you to believe. They want you to trust the plan. And, speaking of AI scams, if you're wondering what happens when this prophecy talk turns into the wild, you can watch a video we got, and it talks about Moldbook and what happens when these narratives of sentient AI hit real life. So if you haven't watched it yet, it's here. Like and leave us a comment telling us how you feel about all this religious talk that used to be a conversation about technology.